The Star and D'Amico Show, brought to you by cheapesttshirts.ca. Need blanks for your next event or club? Check out cheapesttshirts.ca. No minimum order, free shipping over $350. Same-day shipping on lots of items. Affordable, Canadian, ready to print your design. Brought to you by Catherine Prince at Remax Platine, your Montreal real estate connection. Call her at 514-702-2474 or email Catherine with a K, Catherine at catherineprince.com. If you're looking to buy, sell, or invest with confidence, Catherine Prince, your key to the city's property market. Brought to you by McLean's Pub. Looking for a lively downtown spot with great food and atmosphere? Come to McLean's Pub on Peel Street. Classic pub eats, plenty of beer, and all the sports on all the screens. Grab your friends and make McLean's your go-to place tonight. Brought to you by Cabletel, your full-service telecom partner for business and home. From structured cabling and phone systems to Wi-Fi, cameras, and alarms, Cabletel keeps you connected, secure, and performing at your best. Your partner for the future. It's Cabletel. Welcome to a special edition of the Star and D'Amico Show. Normally, the off day is on the Saturday, and we're happy to be with you every Sunday at 10 a.m. for a live extravaganza. But special circumstances require special programming, and that's why we're here bright and early on this Saturday at 10 a.m. Thank you so much for being with us. Welcome to the live presentation. Shout out to Little Bear. Everything you need for your pet's best life can be found at Little Bear. You can shop online at littlebearonline.com. The best brands at the best prices from around the world. A family-owned business. Shout out to Chuck and Evie and their wonderful staff. Check them out on St. Catherine across from Westmount Square. Or, as I mentioned, online at littlebearonline.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And join us next Tuesday at Maison Publique McLean's on Peel Street for our third ever extravaganza, our live extravaganza, and a live watch party against the Boston Bruins. But here we are now to react to a late-night maneuver as the Montreal Canadiens have reacquired Phil Danault from the LA Kings in exchange for a 2026 second-round pick. Montreal had acquired that pick from Columbus along with Patrick Laine back in August of 2024 for defenseman Jordan Harris, and now Phil Danault is back home. And, of course, if you look on your screen now, you see Marco D'Amico, the man who more or less told you that Phil Danault was going to be on the move. Montreal, New Jersey, Carolina were sniffing around. But Marco, just around 11 o'clock last night, Phil Danault is back with the Montreal Canadiens. Obviously, you're not surprised. What does this do to the depth of the Montreal Canadiens? Let's start there.
I think it takes a huge load off of Nick Suzuki. And I think that's the biggest win right there, is just right off the bat, not overworking Nick Suzuki the way that they have of late. I think it also gives the Canadiens some options in terms of being able to build out their roster a little bit. Like, the lines will not be as black and white as they once were. And as trivial as this may seem, Phil Danault's excellence in the faceoff circle on the left side, he has a left shot, is something of excessive need. It was the reason why they were playing with, the ice time of a guy like Joe Veleno so much, is because he was efficient and a left shot center. Well, now you've significantly upgraded that. And I don't know, something tells me that Phil Danault will have a better offensive performance playing more minutes in Montreal with what I consider to be guaranteed second wave power play time.
You know, I like that you talk about the offensive performance because, I mean, his career in LA, once he was moved or signed there on the $5.5 million per year commitment over 6 years, right? 27 goals, 18 goals, 17 goals, 8 goals. And now through 30 games, Marco, he's on no goals and just 5 assists. Mm-hmm. So fair to say this is more of an LA problem than it is a Phil Danault problem. I mean, I don't watch West Coast hockey. You know, I'm not watching West Coast hockey, but, obviously. But more of an LA Kings thing than a Phil Danault thing because, we can talk about
look at the team. Look at the entire LA Kings offense right now.
I mean, let's clear the air right now. Like, I don't envision this happening for a second here. Like, he's not here to take Oliver Kapanen's spot next to Demidov on the second line when he slots in.
If I speak, I'm in trouble. But he might.
Really?
I don't know on a full-time basis, but like, example, the Canadiens are on the road. They don't have last change. You may see Danault flip in and out of that line just so that they can cover their bases. I mean, if you're Martin St. Louis, you're going to lean on you're going to lean on Phil Danault a lot. You're going to lean on him a lot, and I don't blame him for that. I mean, Phil Danault was someone that was leaned on a lot all the way to a Stanley Cup Final, so I get it. I think Kapanen, I think it allows him to kind of relax a little bit. He won't be dependent on as much defensively. But just to give you an idea of how dead the LA Kings offense is, their leading scorer is Adrian Kempe, who just signed a near $11 million deal.
Yeah.
30 points in 34 games. After that, the next best scorer is Kevin Fiala with 23 points in 34 games. But after that, there isn't a player on the LA Kings with more than 20 points. Like, when I mean the offense is anemic in LA, I mean it is anemic.
Well, we saw when they were here, right? I mean, they're very much a very tight defensive, kind of shut you down kind of hockey club. They don't freewheel. Yeah.
Opportunistic. Absolutely. Yeah. And like, it goes to show you, like, it's just not a deep team at all. At all. And I think, that was the main reason why the LA Kings wanted a roster player in return, because now they're so thin. And I'm going to say this once, but for a team that's now super thin at center, with Anze Kopitar leaving this year, right? He's retiring. This is a team that I think is going to be very aggressive on the Ryan O'Reilly or Nazem Kadri front, because Ken Holland in no way, shape, or form is going to rebuild. But there is no way a general manager in a win now situation takes a draft pick for Phil Danault if he was actually looking to shop him.
Right.
If the request to move didn't come from the player, this deal doesn't get done. Period. And that is all.
Yeah.
That is all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah. I mean, your original reporting on this was your sources indicated
more than one.
Exactly. That's why I pluralized the word, right? And then, of course, the infamous quote tweet from agent Alan Walsh, and the rest, as they say, is history. I think we see today who was on the right side of that story as we come to you live on the Star and D'Amico Show. Please like and subscribe for daily Habs content. The road to 20,000 subscribers begins with each and every single one of you. And it was funny, Marco, if we let people in on what you and I were texting about yesterday on the Phil Danault trade, before obviously, this ultimately went down, was, Jake Evans. They're after Jake Evans. Both you and I in our private text conversation are like, no, not happening. And then it was like, maybe Owen Beck. So let's talk about the reaction to the fact that the Montreal Canadiens traded one of their second round picks, not their own, Columbus's. We'll see what happens, how it all shakes out. Personally, I mean, odds suggest the Canadiens' second round pick won't be as valuable as Columbus based on the standings and how we think they finish. But I was kind of surprised that, air quote, that's all it took to get Phil Danault out, which, and I'll say this, it obviously puts more credibility in your reporting about how the player wanted out, because if the player wanted out, I mean, that was a nice get for the Montreal Canadiens. I'm not dismissing the value of a second round pick, but it went for less than I thought originally.
Okay, so there's a couple of things to go into this, all right? The first was the price point. So it's basically as such. When you have the center market the way it is, how many centers are actually available on the market right now? One, Ryan O'Reilly.
Right.
That's it.
Who apparently doesn't want to leave Nashville now. But
and he doesn't want to leave Nashville. And you're at that point. There are tons of teams that were looking for centers. But Phil Danault, number one place he wanted to go to was Montreal. And Ken Holland wanted to acquiesce to a certain degree. And, it's okay. We are where we are. A second round pick. I mean, if Danault were having a good season, I think it would have cost more than a second round pick given the market for a center. But a second round pick in this context is fine. In my honest opinion, it's fine. For a center, a top 9 center in this league, it is fine. And I think, when when a center actually does get traded, like I don't even want to know what the trade package for a Nazem Kadri is going to look like.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Right? Like, and I'm not comparing the two players. Nazem Kadri is obviously a much more superior player. And I see fans saying, second round picks, what it's not worth much. Second round picks are useless. I mean, well, listen, Lane Hudson's pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think it's more like, a second in this context is good. And then a lot of people are like, well, why do they give Columbus? Well, hey, Columbus is not like, and nobody in the Eastern Conference is out of it. And Columbus themselves added trading a second and a fourth for a winger, Mason Marchment. So just going to show you how wacky the trade, scene is right now. When it comes to him as an asset, Phil Danault has the most bounce back probability that you could possibly imagine in this case. His advanced metrics are there. So do I think that if he gets consistent second wave power play time, that he gets his usual penalty kill minutes, that he gets used regular on 5-on-5 the way that Jim Hiller was not utilizing him in LA, do I think that we're going to see an uptick in his offense? Absolutely. Absolutely. And with that said, I'm going to go one step further on this one. He's 32 years old. He'll be 33 in February. His deal ends next year. He'll be 34. I'm willing to say this right now. I believe that at the end of that deal, Phil Danault will sign for cheap to stay in Montreal and eventually just, be that bottom six presence for the Canadiens when they're really starting to go for it, because they're going to need that bigger veteran presence that's been through playoffs and knows how to play against those those big name players. So I don't necessarily think it's just for the 2 years and looking at the 5.5 million. I think there's more to this than simply just what you have in front of you.
I want to get into what happens when we get to the later stages of the season, i.e., February, March, when we start to see bodies return. Kirby Dach didn't look all that comfortable skating yesterday. Obviously, his timeline, right? Maybe he was looking at around a now return into Boxing Day before 2026. Doesn't look like that's going to happen. But as of now, right, I wrote down my line combinations. I want to keep Kapanen and Demidov together personally, round that line out with Juraj Slafkovsky. Danault between Texier and Josh Anderson. Joe Veleno stays in but moves to the wing for Jake Evans, who now I think centers the fourth line to go with Brendan Gallagher. I see you nodding accordingly. So obviously you kind of see it that way, where here you get a guy in Danault who you paid a second round pick for, who wins more than 50% of his draws. Marco, we talk about this with Joe Veleno, left-handed centerman, right? Like the value of that considering where the Canadiens are. So your thoughts on those forward combinations, because we don't know yet. He's not going to play tonight at home against Pittsburgh. Maybe tomorrow, maybe Sunday at Pittsburgh, if not Tuesday, for our live watch party at Maison Publique McLean's. That would be nice. We go to Maison Publique McLean's. Danault makes his Canadiens debut against the Boston Bruins. So what do you think about the forward combinations once Danault is ready to go back in a Canadiens uniform?
I think it'll be a little difficult. I just wanted to make sure in terms of like how they would go about it, because right now the Canadiens sent down Jared Davidson, and it's actually what I'm trying to find out now. I'm in communication with the Canadiens team, trying to figure out how they're making this work, because they've only sent down Jared Davidson as of now.
Right.
So in the calculation, they're theoretically over the cap by about 700,000. So I'm kind of wondering how they've done this. So trying to get down to the bottom of it. We'll definitely keep you posted on that one. But I think the real question is not the cap, because they can make the cap work. I don't think that's an issue. I think the real question here is, how are they going to make the roster work? Because you have to figure it. You have to also factor in Caden Gooley's coming back within a month. Patrick Laine will come back probably before or just after the Olympics.
Right.
Alex Newhook, thankfully or unthankfully, I think it hurts this team, but Alex Newhook is only due back, around the trade deadline. At the trade deadline, like once you pass the trade deadline, there is no more 23-man roster limit. You could have as many players on your team as long as you don't bust the cap. So I don't think that's an issue. Where I think there's going to be an issue is in that period between January and March, because you're going to be getting Goalie back, you're going to be getting Laine back. The Canadians don't they're not going to send Kapanen down. They're not going to send Demidov down. So the only other option you have without the use of waivers is Adam Engstrom. And so when Caden Gooley comes back, they're going to have a decision to make on defense as well, which is where I think, and this is kind of where I want to bring this. A lot of people said last night, oh, well, the Canadians have basically taken on $5.5 million. They've ruined any chance they have of being able to make another move at the trade deadline. I completely disagree. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen, is that you're going to need to make a bigger move or another move, to continue to improve this team. And I'm telling you right now, the Phillip Danault trade, as much as I appreciate Phillip Danault and I know where he is in his career and the experience that he has.
Yeah.
The search for a 2C continues.
For sure. Yeah, this is not the answer to that puzzle. Let's be clear.
This is the Canadians. This is the Canadians trying to create strength down the middle.
Yes, correct.
And it's not simply just by acquiring a 2C, because then if one of your 2Cs one of your top 6 centers gets injured and you don't have a next guy up kind of player that can come into that situation, the Canadians now have 2, in my opinion, in Kapanen and Danault.
Yeah.
Now you go and get yourself a true second line center. The Canadians go from having a weakness at center to having a strength down the middle.
Well, even now, as I have it written down, Suzuki, Kapanen, Danault, and Evans. I mean, to me, that's already on. No disrespect to Owen Beck, but that's such an improvement to me in terms of responsibility, experience, the ability to win a key draw, the ability to shut down the opposition to help the Montreal Canadiens PK unit. And what about also the other layer to this move, Marco, helping Nick Suzuki out a little bit? Does this mean Nick Suzuki plays maybe less shorthanded minutes in terms of
less
how
5-on-5 minutes?
Less
5-on-5 minutes. Because one of the biggest things that Martin St. Louis does, and again, it's an observation. I'm not an NHL coach, but it's an observation. Yeah. It just doesn't sit well with me. Is he uses the first line as a shutdown line. You don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Phil Danault is your shutdown center. So you can build a third line that will be looked at as a two-way line, but a shutdown line. And I think when Alex Newhook comes back, Alex Newhook and a Phil Danault combination, match made in heaven.
Yeah.
In terms of a strong two-way line that will work well. And I think that will help drive offense for Phil Danault as well. So I really like that. It's more like, what are we looking for in terms of like identities of lines? So now you can go back to a pure offensive, or not. Okay, maybe not pure offensive, but you can go back to an offensively inclined first line. And that's great. And I think that takes a load out of Nick Suzuki. He could focus more on creating, not worrying so much about playing against the team's opposition, because the other thing that changes in this is matchups, right? When you're at home, like tonight, for example, if Phil Danault is in the lineup, who do you think's matching up against Crosby? Phil Danault or Nick Suzuki now?
Right.
Phil Danault.
Yeah.
So who is Nick Suzuki matching up against? Probably Ben Kindell or like Kevin Hayes on the third line. And I think
much better matchup.
Those battles. Although I will say that Ben Kindell is a fantastic rookie and he's going to have a great career. At this stage in his career, Nick Suzuki would probably, have a field day against Ben Kindell. So that's kind of where the things would change, is that the matchups will change at 5-on-5. The opportunity to take advantage of those matchups thereby increases his potential offensive output. And I think when that happens, that's when things will become different. And then when you're on the road and you don't have the last change, it simply becomes an extra feather in Martin St. Louis' cap, in the sense, or at least like an option in his pocket, where you can run at least 3 lines now, because you have to include Evans's line, 3 defensively sound lines that you could just rotate in and out, in and out, in and out. And then you can choose when to deploy the Kapanen line if you're not sure about what's going on. But even then, I think their minutes are earned at this point.
Well, it's why, on the surface, this deal makes a lot of sense. And especially when we were reading some of the opinion yesterday that was out there, that if the Habs are actually going to put hands on Danault. It may cost you a Jake Evans. It may cost you an Owen Beck. To
That was the
Marco's,
ask.
well, that's it. To Marco's point about LA void at the center position, and if they're going to give up another one in the face of Anze Kopitar calling it a Hall of Fame career, that's who they were looking at. But not everybody loves this deal in terms of perhaps what this means is Habs cast 3978 points out. That second round pick, including the cap space, were assets. Those assets could have been used to perhaps acquire that mysterious, vaunted 2C. The
can I address this just quick? Your 2C would have been worth a drop in the bucket in the actual cost for your second round pick would have been a drop in the bucket for the actual cost of a 2C.
Mm-hmm.
Like a legitimate 2C is going to cost you a first to top prospect and a pick.
Yeah, I mean,
and the Canadiens already have a second round pick. Like, to me, if you acquire a 2C and Phil Danault and it costs you a first round pick, a top prospect, and 2 second round picks to do, it's a good trade.
Yeah.
So I'm not necessarily worried about that. Those that worry about the second round pick being like, sure, absolutely, it could have been used for that. But
who is that 2C? Like, point me in the direction of this 2C that's available, you know?
But look at top centers that have been traded in the past. You think a middling second round pick it was the difference maker? No,
exactly.
No, it wasn't. You could throw a prospect in that could. Owen Beck, for example, is worth a second round pick. So if the Canadiens, this is the second time Owen Beck has been mentioned in a trade that the Canadiens were trying to push. First, there was in the Noah Dobson trade talks, and now it was in this one. So if ever there's an opportunity and a team is looking to trade a number 2 center, they're going to want a young center in return. A guy like Owen Beck could easily replace their second round pick for a team because he's already developed. You know, he's closer to the NHL than the second round pick. And prospects generally have more value than draft picks.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily see this as an antecedent. The cap space, I'll give you. The cap space is going to require some maneuverability. I'm interested to see what the Canadiens do with Patrick Laine eventually, if he's the one that's kind of sacrificed, I don't know, traded with retention.
Exactly.
So that, you can get an asset for him from a team looking for scoring and you free up 4.2 million in the process.
Yeah.
I think that could make sense. But, for the cap space is going to be a very interesting kind of maneuvering from the Canadiens because they're going to be right up against the cap now until some of their injured players come back. Because the injured players, putting them on LTIR is useless.
Yeah.
Because they're coming off, it's going to be temporary LTIR, so you don't get the full benefit of their cap space. So you're sending them, like, as soon as they come back, you have to make a subsequent move. Because right now, theoretically, the Canadiens are running a team as if they had 27 players on the roster. Because when a player is on IR, their cap hit still counts. And then you have to recall a player to replace them. So it's like you're paying 2 players for one spot. So when Goalie comes back and Adam Engstrom goes down, example, or the Canadiens make a trade, I'm just saying example, the Canadiens would save $1 million on the cap. Patrick Laine comes back, the Canadiens have to waive someone to send them down, say Joe Veleno, the Canadiens save $1 million. So in theory, when the Canadiens do get to the trade deadline, they would have about $2 to $3 million to play with. But then I think, you'd also have to sacrifice some roster players to make that happen.
Well, to that point, let me follow up, right? Because in the world that exists where Kirby Dach is back, Caden Gooley is back, Alex Newhook is back, and this is going to be later in the season, especially as it relates to forward Alex Newhook, right? In my projected lineup, when we go to that timeline for the Montreal Canadiens, again, Newhook's back, Dach's back, Canadiens are ready to fill out the full lineup. I don't see where Brendan Gallagher, Patrick Laine, and Joe Veleno fit. I think it just goes back to your point about there's maybe another move or two, whether it's one of those forwards or one of their expendable defensemen, because we can't ignore how good Adam Engstrom has looked, right? I mean, you've got Jaden Struble playing in a bad chair up there with Noah Dobson. Alex Carey in a top 4 role. His game isn't suited for top 4. So a lot hinges on Caden Gooley getting back. But, these are the tough decisions you're talking about, right? When it comes to what's Patrick Laine's future, what's Brendan Gallagher's future on this team, where if I have Alex Texier still playing, Jake Evans still playing, I moved Doc to the wing. Alex Newhook's on the wing, obviously. Danault and Kapanen and Suzuki remain my centers. So, like,
Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of chairs and not a lot of places to plug those guys right now.
absolutely. And I think what's been really interesting in being able to talk about this roster construction and the way they kind of want to go with it is the Canadians have options, right? You
Yeah.
can be a seller in the Canadian situation because there's so few players available.
Yeah.
If the Canadians are willing to retain on line A, I'm sure they'll be able to find someone to take him on. Sure, you're going to be able to do that. If the Canadians decide they want to be able to move some of these players, like there's opportunity. There's definitely opportunity to be able to move out some salary. I don't necessarily think it's problematic.
Yeah.
So I think you're more than fine. I know for a fact that Kent Hughes isn't done. I can tell you this for a fact. So I wouldn't necessarily worried about it. What I would tell you, especially as we kind of get to the crux of what's going on here, people could talk about like a Gallagher buyout, sure, whatever. That's only a summer thing. Can't happen during the season. So, to me, when it comes to how they go about settling up their roster, I think that it puts the Canadians in a situation where they can play the game.
Yeah.
Play the game, see what happens, see who's available, see what comes at you. And then eventually you're going to have no choice but to make a decision based on that. And you can build a market accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that Patrick Laine is worth something at $4 million. I absolutely do. I think that one of Brendan Gallagher or Josh Anderson, whatever you want, can be traded at 50%. Clause is willing. I don't think that's a problem. What I would say is that the Canadians have the opportunity to take their time and study this and see where they want to go with it.
Yeah.
But for me, the way that this team is built out right now, I have trouble understanding how they're going to be able to make a move like that without Patrick Laine being involved in anything, in any trade possible, because that $8.7 million at this point is a massive anchor. And if he doesn't come back at 100%, it's problematic. And then the thing that you really have to consider here is, would the Canadians match up Patrick Laine when he comes back with someone like Phil Danault, who would cover for his defensive deficiency? And then you kind of just complete that line with an Alex Texier.
Mm-hmm.
I think then you're starting to make sense on a potential third line, but it's an expensive third line. And then you have an expensive fourth line that follows.
And I mean, a lot of this too, right? And we know General Manager Kent Hughes is speaking right now. And I think he just mentioned that the plan is for Danault to join the team in Boston on Tuesday next week.
Yeah.
The Canadians play at home tonight against Pittsburgh. They're in Pittsburgh on Sunday. It's also expected that Sam Montembeault will rejoin the Canadians for Sunday's game against the Penguins. He's in goal today for the Laval Rocket against the Cleveland Monsters. This after his AHL debut this season, went 4 goals on 24 shots. He'll get the second game again today. Hopefully for the young man, he'll be able to help backstop this team and get them back on track a little bit here. But also to your point, right? Like, a lot of this maneuverability, this future maneuverability, is also going to be dictated on how these players perform between here and then, right? I mean, someone like Alex Texier, who's on an absolute heater, who they got for nothing after the Blues terminated his contract. I mean, he's been such a pleasant surprise and a resurgence for this guy since the Montreal Canadiens put hands on him. But like, on the surface, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, Brendan Gallagher has been an unbelievable member of the Montreal Canadiens since he made the team and never looked back. But
yeah,
in terms of the speed and the physicality, 1v1 today, I mean, it's Josh Anderson over Gallagher all day, every day, right?
Yeah. I think Josh Anderson, when he's on, and especially as you get into the later stages of the it doesn't mean necessarily much in my regard. Like, you're talking about 2 fourth line players at this point, but Josh Anderson can play special teams, plays on the PK, so he has a role. He definitely has a role, and I think that you're going to have to look at what it is that's possible. I strongly believe that Gallagher could sit Absolutely. And then the Canadians will have to make a decision on that this summer, whether or not
Crazy.
they trade him with retention, whether
Yeah.
they buy him out, whether they just bite the bullet and keep him for his last year. I don't necessarily envy that position, but they also didn't put themselves in that position. They
Yeah.
acquired those, they inherited those contracts. So I think you look at Gallagher right now, he's great in the room, someone you can keep in the lineup, someone that could, at this stage of his career, can be in and out, could be the 13th forward if necessary.
Mhm.
And, it may suck for him. It always, I feel for those players. I do. But it is a business. It's
It is.
cutthroat for players at times. And, you're going to have to make decisions. I don't think you can have Brendan Gallagher playing on a top nine in the NHL today with the
Mhm.
way that he plays and be successful.
The World Junior Hockey Championships for Canada get going for real on Boxing Day. They take on Czechia. Michael Hage's role is going to be one of the highlights for Habs Nation to see how he develops, how that tournament goes for the Montreal Canadiens' future forward prospect. You mentioned earlier in the live show today, Phil Danault, and you could see a world that exists where he makes less on his next contract, signs that contract to perhaps wrap up his career as a Montreal Canadien. How does this impact Michael Hage's future for the Montreal Canadiens when we look at the center depth? Nick Suzuki's not going anywhere. Kapanen, Jake Evans is signed. Phil Danault in this hypothetical that he re-ups with Montreal to stay here. What do you think this does to the prospects of Michael Hage and how he grows into his role?
Yeah, well, I think it's great for Michael Hage that he's being used at center for Team Canada. It shows that they have belief in his puck carrying ability. And when you have Brady Martin on the other side and you have a TJ Ginla, like the faceoffs can be split up. So it's an easier fit. And I think that, I personally love that line to be completely honest with you. Um, though I will say, and I will add this little, bit of caution.
Yeah.
Being a center at the World Junior Championships in no way, shape, or form, and guarantees that you're going to be a center at the pro level. Like, let's call a spade a spade. Junior hockey is not pro hockey. What I would say though is it's extremely encouraging. In my conversations with Hockey Canada, they were very impressed with the improvement in Michael Hage's defensive game, his details, and so that's why they're trusting him at center. And I think that's great because he's got that versatility. But when it comes time to making the jump to the NHL, I don't necessarily think that the Canadians are going to want to throw him to the Wolves.
Right.
And the way that the Canadians are set up right now, and it's not by chance, but the only way Michael Hage is getting into this lineup, if he signs with the Canadians in April, is on the wing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's by design. And I think a perfect player for him to play with in that kind of regard is Phil Danault. Who better to learn from?
Agreed.
Right. And I think that then you slowly start to work your way up. He gets a little bit of experience this season. He plays next season. We see where he's at. If he starts in Laval, that's totally fine. But all this does is it affords the Canadians more time, the same way that acquiring Noah Dobson afforded them more time on David Reinbacher. And look at what that patience has done. David Reinbacher has been playing quite well for Laval since coming back from injury consistently. So someone, I always prone patience in this regard. But when you look at a guy like Michael Hage, you can't help but get excited. I understand why Canadians fans are excited about Michael Hage. He's got the speed, he's got the stick handling, he's got the vision, the speed of execution. He's going to be a very exciting player. But I think that this just puts younger players in better situations to come into a structured environment and thrive. And I think that's the biggest add that you can put that's maybe non-quantifiable from the acquisition of a Phil Danault.
How much of an appetite do you think exists to see Kapanen away from Demidov? When we talk about the depth down the middle this season, I mean, it's going now. I mean, Slafkovsky has been a nice addition to that line. We've spoken on this subject before with the strong belief that exists that Demidov can make anybody in that chair look pretty good. But in terms of adding layers for Martin St. Louis' lineup, I mean, I don't know what his preference is when the Suzuki line gets off the ice. Does he want to go back with another more experienced player in Phil Danault to see if he can get something cooking with Demidov, have Kapanen slide down. He plays with Alex Texier, perhaps hypothetically, but I'm curious what you believe the appetite would be for something like that.
I think it's going to be situational. I think that when you look at him and his utilization, he'll mostly be used in a shutdown capacity. But with the Canadiens' depth that they have coming back, you also have to factor in where is Kirby Dach going to fit in, because he may not be coming back before Christmas, but he's definitely going to be coming back, before the start of January. So you have to factor that in. Where's he going to play?
Looks on the wing, doesn't it? Looks more and more likely he's going to play on a wing with the Danault acquisition.
That's it. You're not moving Kapanen to the wing. That's a waste of opportunity. Yeah. And I think playing with Phil Danault will allow him to focus more on his offensive output. So, maybe, seeing a Danault, Texier, Dach line could make a ton of sense. I mean, that's a much better third line than the Canadiens have had in the past. And I think that will be ever more important when Alex Newhook comes back, because having Alex Texier on your fourth line is an absolute luxury with the way he's playing right now, right? So imagine you have an Evans, Texier, Anderson fourth line going into a playoff run. That offers you it checks off a lot of boxes: speed, skill, physicality from Anderson, good possession numbers from Jake Evans. There's a lot to like there. So I think this affords the Canadiens a lot of options. And if they do run into further injuries, they're now better equipped to run through them. Mm-hmm. And they have guys that have experience now in Texier, in Phil Danault, to be able to help some of these younger guys move up. The only thing that I would say, and then this is where the Canadiens have to play hopscotch with the line, is as long as these new acquisitions don't inhibit younger players from being able to come up and eventually take those roles. It's a tightrope.
Yeah, very much so, right? A reminder to join us live on Tuesday next week. It's a live watch party with Star and D'Amico. We're going to do this show live. We're going to have a fun pregame show. Love to see a lot of faces show up, come by, say hello. It's on Peel Street in downtown Montreal. Great service, great atmosphere. The game will be on all the screens. It's Habs and Bruins, and the live watch party Tuesday night, just before the holidays. Come get some holiday cheer with Star and D'Amico, live from Maison Publique McLean's. As we look forward to this game day against the Montreal Canadiens and the Pittsburgh Penguins, as we know, Phil Danault, Kent Hughes alluding to this in his press conference. He was scheduled to speak around 10:15 this morning in the aftermath of striking a deal for Phil Danault, giving up a second-round pick to get so. The LA Kings do not retain any salary in that transaction. It was part of the Jordan Harris deal from August of last year, and the Montreal Canadiens trade Columbus's second-round pick to get Phil Danault back to Montreal, providing a little bit more depth down the middle, certainly. And as Ken Hughes perhaps alluded to, almost alluding to the fact that, to back up Marco's reporting from last week, that Phil Danault was, in fact, seeking a trade, and it appears very likely that could see Danault back in a Montreal Canadiens uniform against the Boston Bruins. When it comes to what this does for the Canadiens, I mean, are we talking instant impact where his speed, his game can suit what Martin St. Louis has been building, not only culture-wise, but hockey-wise?
I think his intelligence, his hockey IQ is what fits most in with Marty. I think Phil Danault was never a speedster, to be completely honest with you, so I don't necessarily know about that, but it's definitely the way he plays, the competitive nature in him as well. Not a player that's going to give up on the play. Right. Not a player that the team's down by a goal is going to give up. You know what he's going to give you. And it's the reason why Phil Danault was a fan favorite before he left anyway, is because you knew what you were getting in Phil Danault. You knew that you were getting a guy that was going to take his teammates to war. That's why that first line with him and Gallagher and Thomas Tatar back in the day was so successful, because they would always pull each other into the trench war against other teams, and they would win by outworking the opposition. Mm-hmm. And that has always been my my view of Phil Danault, is hard work. And who better to rub, like you're rubbing that off on all the other younger players, where you see a guy absolutely committed to being just a hardworking player that, wins the day every day, one day at a time. And I think with a coach like Martin St. Louis, you're not going to be going backwards like Phil Danault was going backwards with Jim Hiller.
Right.
I think that he's going to be extremely motivated. I mean, like, guys, he won this situation. He got traded to the exact place he wanted to get traded. Top of his list was Montreal, right? He didn't have the choice. He didn't have a no movement clause. He had a 10-team no trade. But if he got to choose, he was coming back to Montreal.
Yeah.
And so the fact that he won out here, you best believe Phil Danault is going to be playing with a significant amount of adrenaline for the first couple of games that he's back. And that first game back at the Bell Center, when they're going to mention his name, or first time he gets a point, or the first time he touches the ice, the chills for this man in terms of going back to the place he never wanted to leave in the first place. And I know that we've heard a lot of misinformation about how he left. I'm not going to open up that can of worms, but just know that it most definitely was not a simple contract issue.
Right. Exactly. I wonder what's more likely to happen. As soon as Phil Danault gets here, he's going to land with a pizza sponsorship in his back pocket and see him on endorsements.
Missed opportunity.
Or are we going to see our own version of the Hamburglar? Fans are going to throw slices of pizza on the ice when Phil Danault gets his first goal back.
No, don't do that. No. Guys, don't throw pizza on the ice. Don't.
Yeah.
Throw pizza at me.
No, you can't. That's assault, brother.
I'll eat it.
Let's get to some questions. Stargate Traveler 2050 with a thinking man's emoji, the emoji. Are the Canadiens a better team acquiring Phil Danault? They're a better team, Marco, in a very layered way. We touched on this as it relates to just one fact. Nick Suzuki, to me, is such a money part of the Phil Danault acquisition. They're a better team today, Marco.
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely say that they're a better team today. I think that end of the day, the moment you improve your center line in hockey, you become better.
Yeah.
I believe, and this is me, okay? If everyone disagrees, everybody has the right. I believe championship teams are won with depth down the middle. Does this solve the Canadiens' 2C issue? Absolutely not.
No.
Well, what does this do? It makes them deeper now. It makes them a team that is able to keep up right now and that will assure a certain level of transition for these younger players coming in. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that when you have a veteran player that you can put some of your younger forwards around, that definitely helps. And it helps to the point where you have a base, a balancing base, where you can bring in a younger guy. You know, I talked about Michael Hage. When Alexander Zhuravsky comes and you want to put him with someone, you're going to put him with Phil Danault.
Right.
That's what I see. To me, there's like a landing pad. If everybody remembers, when Nick Suzuki began his NHL career, who did he start with? Nate Thompson.
Oh, the Nate dog.
Yeah, Nate Thompson. And how good was Nate Thompson as a landing pad for Nick Suzuki at 5-on-5?
Yeah, I mean, good veterans are a thing. Good veterans are very valuable, to your point, right? And I like this from David because I kind of agree with this. It corrects the loss of Christian Dvorak. I mean, can you cast a light on, did the Canadiens have an appetite to keep Dvorak? I mean, he signed for 1 year in Philadelphia. So beyond what happens this year,
I'm going to add one wrinkle to that. Yeah. Christian Dvorak is having a phenomenal season because he is playing with a phenomenal player in Trevor Zegras right now.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So something to keep in mind. Number 2, if he continues this way, Christian Dvorak is going to make a lot of money this summer.
Yeah.
A lot of money, like more than $5 million a year. And then we have a conversation, because the Canadiens were never matching $5 million for Christian Dvorak. Their mistake was not replacing him, but they had no business giving him that money. Neither did the Flyers. So it is what it is in that regard. Where I would go one step further is, I think Phil Danault's a better fit, in the sense that what I like about Christian Dvorak is what he does well. But the thing about Christian Dvorak is he lacks the experience that the Canadiens desperately need in a playoff situation.
Yeah.
And I think that's where he's hurt. Where Phil Danault brings that experience. Like, yes, they're 3 years apart in age right now, but like to me, I just say this, I don't think Danault is a better offensive player, but I think at this stage anyway, but I think that Phil Danault has shown more of an ability to be that kind of offensive player in different circumstances than Christian Dvorak has.
Here's our friend Salil, member to the show. You can join the Star and D'Amico community for $2.99 a month. You get early access to all of our videos and priority comments in the live chats throughout the course of the Montreal Canadiens season. You can cancel, of course, at any time. Salil, Marco, teams can see we have a surplus of young defensemen. Do you think one or two would be part of a trade at the deadline or at any point in this offseason? Of course, probably. I think Salil might be pointing at the direction of getting that 2C and what the Canadiens have in terms of giving up in order to get that legit 2C from Salil.
Yeah, I think so. I think that at the end of the Canadiens have no choice but to move a defenseman, in my opinion. And I think the reason why they have no choice is because Adam Engstrom has shown that he is at least a bottom pair defenseman in the making. And I think he's shown that he's at least a bottom pair defenseman in the making today. And that is a great problem to have. Now, does that mean that Engstrom is the one out? Does that mean that, Struble is on the block? Does that mean Arbor Jacki is on the block? To me, one way or the other, it's just unfortunate when you see a guy like, for example, Arbor Jacki, who I think has been playing very well.
Yeah.
If the Canadiens decide that they want to take advantage of his value is very high to certain general managers. But I think that he brings an element to his game that is unique within the lineup. And therefore, I would keep him because he's second on the Canadiens in hits. I would very much keep him. I think Struble is the odd man out because Adam Engstrom does everything Struble can do and then some.
Right.
And so I do believe that he's the one that makes the most amount of sense to move. And I think when it comes time to having to make those decisions, those difficult decisions, having a young defenseman that could jump right into your lineup is very valuable for a team that doesn't want a full rebuild.
But don't you...
what teams don't want a full rebuild right now? A lot.
Right.
I don't think there's one team in the NHL that has been like, that's it, we're blowing it up, raise it to the ground. There ain't one of them.
Like, I don't disagree. Like, Jacki's been playing better, more consistent hockey, making better decisions and not, just always, looking to move the puck. He looks calmer with some of his decision makings in my mind. But in the world of looking for value, today, I mean, we've spoken about this before. NHL insiders, including Marco D'Amico, hashtag an NHL insider. Oh, you keep breaking stories. I mean, if it walks
I'm not an insider.
If it walks
I keep
like
telling
a duck,
you
it's
this.
pretty much a duck. At this point.
No.
I don't know how you could disagree with that, but anyways, Arbor Jacki has more value. And I think with Caden Goalie coming back, eventually, knock on wood, this guy can stay healthy for a prolonged period of time here. I wouldn't be surprised if the Canadiens if they're looking to extract value, Arbor Jacki, no disrespect to the player. I'm just talking from a value perspective, not a biased perspective, a value attractive perspective. Arbor Jacki's got it over Jaden Struble, no question in my mind today.
I think that you have to go from a position of strength, and you also have to make sure that you have different elements on your defensive brigade so that you can adapt your game to the team that plays in front of you.
Yeah.
If that is a thing, then what I would say is that Jaden Struble is the player that makes the most amount of sense to move on the defensive side of the puck. That's the way I see it, because when Caden Goalie comes back, the Canadiens aren't scratching Alex Carrier.
No.
So who is best to play with Alex Carrier on a regular basis? If it's a fast-paced team on the other side, I would play Adam Engstrom. If it's a more physical team on the other side, like a Western Conference team playing in the Central Division, I'd be more apt to play Arbor Jacki. And then there's a very real reality that one of these guys is going to get injured. So you need a sensible seventh defenseman.
Right.
And I think at that point, that's where all of this makes sense. I think that it's difficult because we do, everybody has an opinion and everybody has a valid opinion. Everybody's got two eyes watching the same game.
Yeah.
So I think we can all agree that it's a worthwhile debate as to what that third pair looks like, even if they were to trade Jaden Struble when the lineup is healthy. It's a good problem to have. You're trading from a position of strength. Many teams don't have this depth on defense. And then the Canadiens still have David Reinbacher and Laval, Bryce Pickford burning the WHL. They're in a good position right now. And Owen Protz, who isn't a point getter, is probably one of the better, if not most elite defensemen in the OHL and possibly even the CHL right now. So they're good in that regard. Where I think it's going to be more touch and go is like, you're at the point of this rebuild right now where you need to make the right decision. This is the part where you need to decide which defenseman doesn't fit. And the Canadiens did a good job of identifying that. For example, when they traded Justin Barron for Alex Carrier, I don't think anybody's regretting that trade in Montreal. And I think that, Justin Barron is currently a seventh defenseman right now, if that, for the Nashville Predators, who were last place the last couple of times I checked. So they're fine where they're at. And I don't think that's an issue. So I don't disagree that the Canadiens will find the best way, but maybe not, continuing to acquire a little bit of information is the best course of action, because then the other thing that I know is the Canadiens are waiting for players to become available.
Okay, so let me put a pin in that for a second, right? A shout out to all of our sponsors, CatherinePrince.ca, Catherine with a K, over 20 years in the real estate business, certified Remax Platine, looking to buy or sell your house, just looking for an evaluation on your home and one of the biggest decisions of your life. You can trust Catherine Prince. Check out our website at catherineprince.ca. And of course, the best in home security has partnered with Star and D'Amico. That's Cabletel, cabletel.com, a proud Montreal, Quebec company servicing our community and Eastern Ontario for more than 20 years. We're talking about very installation, no drilling, no mess to clean up, and certified pros with the best in home security at Cabletel. More information at cabletel.com. From Kent Hughes' press conferences, Deuce brings us to the table. Just, when we put a pin in it, right? Where there's a will, there's a way. When asked about if this blocked the Danault trade, if this blocked a possibility for future deals mentioned at the press conference this morning, Marco. I just wonder, what this, specifically what this means. I'm very pessimistic about getting the 2C this year. In season, I'm not optimistic about that.
Yeah.
Unless it's Crosby after the Olympics.
Yeah. I think when it comes to trades, I think we spoke about it a little bit. If the Canadiens want, they have salary that can move.
Yeah.
If they want to move Patrick Laine at 50%, they absolutely can. I think they'll get takers at that regard, at that price, even if it's a mid-round pick, even if it's for future considerations. I know that they'll probably get, a team that would be interested. Unfortunately for the Canadiens, he can't do a double retention situation, but I think that you have to factor in that Kent Hughes has maneuvered around his cap space before.
Yeah.
And I don't foresee it being a problem. What I think
You think what? Tell me.
Can you
tell me more?
You just take that? Can you take that? Thank you.
I love how sensitive you are.
It's more like, can we move past this, please?
No, Marco, you were right, brother. Come on.
There's no need to add to this. I think everyone's just happy that the trade got done, and I prefer to talk about that. But I think when it comes down to it, the Canadiens have options to clear cap space. They have options for money in, money out kind of deals, and I think that they have pieces that other teams could be interested in. But that there are other teams that are just going to be in we're willing to take. To me, adding a 4th round pick with a Patrick Laine at 50% so they can move the $4 million off the books.
Yeah.
Say because just so you guys understand the math that I'm saying, Patrick Laine makes $8.7 million. If you retain 50%, you still save $4.3 million. So if the Canadiens have to add a sweetener to maybe move that, in case a team doesn't even want to take him at 4.3, I think teams will. Then it makes sense. But there are a lot of teams that have significant amount of cap space that are kind of, that will be looking for extra like third line scoring. Patrick Laine at $4 million, I think makes a ton of sense. And I think as much as I appreciate the player, given what the Canadiens have done here, if there's a player that needs to be moved, it's Patrick Laine. As much as I appreciate the player, if there was no salary cap, I'd say keep Patrick Laine. But if there is a salary cap and he's the one inhibiting you from improving the team, with respect, Patrick Laine will be traded. I think that is the easiest way. And the Canadiens have the retention slots, so it's not like it's an issue here. And they have the approval of their owner, so I don't think there's going to be any issue in the retention. And remember, in the playoffs, it's the salary of the 20 players that you ice. Retention, buyouts, none of that applies. It's the 20 players you ice.
Right.
Not even the players that are scratched, just the 20 players you ice. And that's going to be something to keep into consideration.
Let me put a couple of more comments on this one. I like this one from Boogly 2253. I think there's a money point, is it not? When Boog writes, Phil Danault's influence on Kapanen is going to be huge. It goes back to a point made earlier on this live show about being surrounded by good veterans. And we've seen that, whether it was Corey Perry, David Savard, Shea Weber, Sean Monahan. I think Phil Danault really slots in nicely to that conversation for me.
Well, we've spoken to Nick Suzuki about the impact of veterans, and he pointed out the impact that Phil Danault had on his career prior to leaving. And this is well before Phil Danault was made available by trade. And, just talking about like how being around him kind of helped him. Even a guy like Cole Caulfield, said like he learned quickly how to get his feet wet in the NHL and maybe what to do to improve his defensive game. Like I definitely think that there's going to be a rub effect here. And we spoke about it for Michael Hage when he eventually makes the jump. I think Kapanen is going to be the same concept. Demidov to a degree as well. But if there is a player now on that Canadiens roster, like by getting him back, you've also added cultural continuity. Right? You have Brendan Gallagher, Josh Anderson, and now Phil Danault from the 2021 run. That will be able to kind of, if the Canadiens make the playoffs, Phil Danault's running through a wall. Right. Like I don't think that this is a hot take. And when younger players see that, what do you think happens on the next shift? They're going to run through a wall. And it just becomes intrinsically part of the cultural fabric of the team. And that's why I like it. Because there are many ways that you could look at this and not be a fan of this trade. You could be disappointed that LA didn't retain any money on this deal. I afford it to you with the way that Danault has been playing. I too thought that the Canadiens would have to pay a little bit more for retention, but they got the deal done regardless. You could go back and say, hey, I'm not sure about his age, or why couldn't the Canadiens go and get a younger center? Maybe because there were none available, but there's besides the point. So I go back to this and I say the following: the Canadiens aren't done. And, I know you put a pin in it. I bring it back to it. The Canadiens aren't done. They want to be able to acquire a top piece at forward that's going to be able to put everybody in the right chair, and that is going to create an organizational hierarchy so that they're eventually going to be able to deal from a position of strength from forward, from defense, from goalie. And I think really, to me, it's one more move down the middle, or at least in their top six, and they're in business. One thing that I find interesting is I feel like the play of Michael Hage may inform that decision over the next couple months. And if Michael Hage does look like he will legitimately be a center at the next level, which he is doing a much better job of late, I must admit, then maybe they go and get a top 6 scoring winger with size. And so that's why I'm saying it opens up that flexibility. You're dealing from a position of strength now, because not everybody is going to be thinking Montreal's coming for our centers. They're going to be thinking like, oh, okay, well, what are they looking for now? Like, what's happening here?
Yeah.
You know, are they looking for maybe this kind of player? And it gives you more negotiative leverage, just like the Canadiens had a ton of negotiation leverage in this one.
Let me put up this comment here, because I kind of agree with it, from Joe, who says we need size. How many times have we gone to the playoffs and just got completely bullied? Don't act surprised when nothing changes and it happens again. Like we spend a lot of time talking about the 2C in the trade and Arbor Jackie's value and the toughness he brings and the elements he possesses as a defenseman. But ultimately, when we look at the Canadiens' top 6 in a perfect world, Cole Caulfield, hopefully Zach Bolduc can fill in a little bit of role to be, this pesky forward with a heavy shot and a heavy body. Slavkovsky, maybe getting a little meaner. Demidov is ask Rasmus Ristolainen. Demidov doesn't suffer fools, and you saw a little bit of a mean streak in him this week. But outside of that, right, Alex Newhook skews smaller. Josh Anderson, you hope to see more consistency there. But to Joe's point, as you go deeper into playoffs, man, size really matters. And outside of Juraj Slavkovsky, the top 6 is still lacking in that category.
Which is why I continue to say I don't think the Canadiens are done.
Right.
And it's December. The Canadiens use the trade freeze and Phil Danault's situation to their advantage.
Yeah.
Because there's not that many teams that could have been able to take on his full salary without money going back.
Right.
So you factor that in, and then you factor in the very real reality that there are none of those players available. Who would you rather give a second round pick for right now? Kiefer Sherwood or Phil Danault?
So after the hat trick he scored yesterday,
his first 3 goals in like 15 games.
I know. I was out for dinner yesterday, and my buddy was like in an NHL fantasy league, and Sherwood's got 3, and we were talking about, my buddy listens to the show all the time, and he's like, you guys were talking about the value dropping, ever since the number came out that he was looking for $5 million a year and really hadn't scored a goal or looked good. But I like the Phil Danault deal today just because of you're not committing a lot in terms of what's left on Phil Danault's contract if we're talking about Sherwood, et cetera, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the biggest things to keep into consideration as well is it's about identifying the right kind of players.
Yeah.
I love Kiefer Sherwood, but Kiefer Sherwood is playing 17 flipping minutes a game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Playing on power play, playing penalty kill. He's never going to get that on a competitive roster. He's going to be playing on a 3rd or 4th line, playing 13 minutes, right? Well, that's exactly the point I'm trying to say. When you look at a player and you see how much they play and the impact that they have on a game, I am giving a second round pick for a top 9 center all day, every day over a bottom 6 crash and bang winger at this stage of the rebuild. Jesus. Some of these comments are hilarious.
Oh, I know. It's wild. Yeah.
Yeah. The issue that people seem to forget is Kiefer Sherwood is a free agent in the making and is seeking $5 million a year.
Yeah.
Would Canadiens fans in general welcome the use of a draft pick, like a second round pick, on a player that they wouldn't be able to retain at a fair price?
Yeah. Yeah.
You trade 3rd and 4th round picks for similar players.
Yeah.
At the trade deadline every year, all year. You can sign these guys in the off season. You know what you can't sign in the off seasons anymore? Centers.
Yeah.
Look at Philadelphia. They paid $5.1 million.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's working in the here and now, right? But like as member of the show, Surf points out, I mean, in order to get, you got to give. And so,
Mhm.
Surf brings up, who do you trade? Is it going to be Engstrom? Is it going to be a Goalie? Is it going to be a Reinbacher? Again, if you're looking for that, not glorified rental, you're looking for the 2C of the future. And the Montreal Canadiens area of strength. I mean, it's fair to point out their area of strength is certainly on their inside their blue line, is it not?
Yeah, I'd say on the wings as well,
Yeah.
but definitely their blue line. On the wings, when you have Alexander Zharovsky coming, Michael Hage can play wing or center. Those are two guys that I think are going to slot in quite nicely in the Canadiens' top 9, if not top 6,
Yeah.
depending on how everything kind of shakes out. So they have a significant amount of depth there, right? And we'll see what they do with their first. We'll see if there are players that kind of rise above and play to an even higher level. Like, there are players right now that are more than surpassing expectations. I mean, like Logan Sawyer, no one talks about him
Right.
playing out of Providence, but he's almost a point per game, leading his team in scoring. You look at a guy like Trevor Connolly, who was playing on the same team, first round pick of the Vegas Golden Knights, had 7 points in 11 games as a 19-year-old with the Henderson Silver Knights in the AHL. So I expect Logan Sawyer to come to be a legitimate piece at center for the Canadiens, as in terms of a center prospect when he eventually turns pro. So like they have depth. They have periphery play, like bottom 6 players with size coming. Tyler Thorpe already playing in Laval. Hayden Papanikis that they just drafted this year. Like, they've identified the Florian Jacki. They've identified this need so that they go out and trade for one, or that they eventually funnel these size into the roster on the bottom 6. It's coming one way or the other. It's something they've identified. And if there's anybody that knows how Jeff Gorton builds a team, it's not by chance that they drafted Uri Slafkovsky first overall. He likes his big wingers.
Yeah.
So we'll see what comes from that. We'll see how they're able to adapt to that. But it to me, I don't think that this trade by any means takes the Canadiens out of improving their forward roster.
Well, what about, like, we did a video on this week, right? Go back in the channel and watch when we talk about Doug Armstrong and what's going on in St. Louis. I mean, where are we on that timeline with the St. Louis Blues, and what's likely to happen as I mean, are they pivoting? Are we talking about, I mean, there are only a handful of teams below 500 in the NHL. I think we're talking like 6 or 7 teams out of 32. So, just once again, just hammering home the point about the parity that exists, not just in the Eastern Conference, but across the National Hockey League landscape. I mean, are we still a believer in that the St. Louis Blues are going to be one of the more aggressive teams in terms of shedding talent, and teams will be looking at them as a primary target?
No.
Okay.
I think that the St. Louis Blues, from the information that I've received out of folks in St. Louis, St. Louis is looking for like an impactful hockey trade.
Yeah.
Not so much like a full sell job.
Gotcha.
So it would be more akin. I'm trying to think of a team that's done this recently. Look at like the Chicago Blackhawks last year. When they traded Seth Jones, they wanted a hockey deal. They got Spencer Knight as the core piece in the deal, and then a first round pick, right? Well, I think that's more along the lines of what you'd be kind of looking for, right? It's more of like they have an aging core, but they also have an established core. I don't think it's going to be a raise it to the ground kind of scenario, but I do think that, for example, if they could trade Jordan Kyrou for an up and coming top 4 defenseman, they'd do it.
Right.
Yeah. Like when the Canadiens were talking Jordan Kyrou with the St. Louis Blues, who do you think that they were asking for?
Right.
Caden Goalie.
Yeah.
And that's a non-starter. That's a heck no. So, if they're looking to make a move like that, that's the kind of move they'd be looking to make. And, I think that they feel like they could bottom out, draft high this season, but without doing complete surgery on their team, still be in a competitive, state to be able to keep up with some of the teams in the Central Division. So, team to watch, but I'm not expecting them to blow it up.
Yeah. It's game day. Thank you for being with us. I mean, we're pretty much live here for the last 70 minutes, and it's absolutely flown by. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing to the channel. If you're new to the show, as we've teeter-totter, we're over 1,400 live viewers today. Thank you for joining us on this Saturday. We still have a few minutes left. Kent Hughes has been talking, addressing the media and the fan base in the aftermath of Phil Danault coming to Montreal for the second-round pick that the Canadiens got in the Jordan Harris deal back in August of 2024. So it belongs to Columbus. The Canadiens still have their second-round pick. The Habs get better. They get better defensively. They get older. They get more experience. They check a lot of boxes as far as I'm concerned, like what they're doing now. But it's Pittsburgh tonight. The reporting suggests that the Montreal Canadiens and Phil Danault will hook up Tuesday on the road when the Canadiens play at Boston. You can come watch that game live with Star and D'Amico at Maison Publique McLean's next Tuesday. We'll do a live show from there and then hang around and watch the game together. So it should be a lot of fun. Come enjoy your holidays with us, at least for one night anyway. But in terms of tonight, looking for the Montreal Canadiens, Marco, we keep talking because the coach keeps mentioning stacking shift, stacking games, stack, building good habits. The Pittsburgh Penguins getting beat up pretty good lately. They've lost 7 in a row.
Sorry.
Jacob Fowler tonight? I think it's Fowler tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
What's wrong?
Oh, no, just reacting to I mean, people are very complimentary in the show today, but so it's always nice to see.
Yeah. I think Fowler.
Yeah. Me too.
But
second time around, second time around against the Penguins.
Here's a little insight for you guys. When I sat down with Jacob Fowler about a month ago, he was talking about how he made his Bell Center debut in the preseason playing against the Pittsburgh Penguins, which was one of his childhood teams growing up.
Yeah.
And he said that his dream was to play a real game against the Pittsburgh Penguins at the Bell Center. I just feel like he's going to get a lot of games against the Pittsburgh Penguins at the Bell Center in his career, but I just feel like you want a guy to stand up for a game like this. Jacob Fowler would be on adrenaline for a game like this. I would love to see him challenged.
Lots of people in the comments saying he's confirmed already. I think I missed that. My bad.
Well, I mean, we've been kind of working.
Yeah, exactly. Just been going hard here for a second. Hey, you want to hear a crazy take? You ready for this one?
Yeah.
Sidney Crosby is on the cusp of surpassing Mario Lemieux for the most points by a Pittsburgh Penguin. Here we go. Get ready. Look at the eye roll. I love it. I'm saying it. I'm going to say it. Here we go. I'm going to say it. He does it against the Montreal Canadiens tonight.
Oh, thank God.
Okay. He does it against the Canadiens tonight. Habs Nation stands up and gives this guy like a 3-4 minute standing ovation. Once again, the sell job is on to get Crosby to Montreal. That's what's going to happen. I'm telling you, that's what's going to happen next. He's going to break Mario Lemieux's record on Bell Center ice. The Canadiens are going to win tonight, and the fans are going to celebrate Sidney Crosby's monumental achievement. Marco, I'm telling you, it's happening. And then once the Olympics are over, I was told don't expect anything at all on Crosby until the Olympics are over in Italy. Yeah, so that's my sell job. Hab fans are going to show up in a massive way tonight, brother.
So Jacob Fowler is confirmed to be starting.
Thank you.
Just went to do my homework.
Yeah.
And further credit to what I just spoke to you guys about.
Yes.
I think he's going to be, what's the word here? Like out of his mind excited. It's not one word, but it's many words. Jacob Fowler is such a competitor. And the last time he played at the Bell Center, that unfortunate third goal against the Philadelphia Flyers.
Go ahead.
He's going to be even more motivated to be at that next level. Absolutely incredible for him to be able to get this start given, the situation. And I think going to Dobesh tomorrow is the perfect call as well. And
yes,
kudos to Dobesh. I think he's been lining up a couple of pretty good games of late. So let's see if he's able to carry that momentum into a third straight game.
Have you seen anything on Matheson at all?
Matheson was skating today with the main group. So he's at the Canadiens morning skate. So we'll know probably once the coach speaks. So I think we're in business in that regard. I think, well, look, that's one thing. I wouldn't risk it either.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'll say this. From what I know, if the Canadiens were in the playoffs, Mike Matheson would be playing.
Yes, I agree with that. I agree. Yes, but they're being
So
cautious, and that's the
yeah,
right course of action to me. What
as
about this
opposed to
from Joe? Can we talk about how tight the Atlantic is? We may not even make the playoffs. I think the Canadiens are playing good enough hockey where I think they're going to make the playoffs, but it doesn't change the fact that parity, like have a bad week and a half, and you're like out of the race again. You know,
the Canadiens are in the playoff race despite having one of the worst league, actually up until last week, the
that's right.
worst goal save above expected
Isn't that
in the NHL.
crazy to you? Like, what if they
No,
were average, bro?
I
Like,
think
how good would this team be if they had average goaltending? It's crazy to me.
they'd be the top team in the Atlantic right now,
Yeah.
right? And I
Yes.
think
Maybe
that
running away.
to me is insane because
I agreed.
the roster outside of the goalies, the skaters, it's the youngest group of skaters in the NHL.
Yes.
And the skaters are good enough to be a top half team in the NHL.
Yeah.
If not top 10, that top 12, let's say. So if they get half decent goaltending, like if Dobesh is just able to take the number one reins, and then you see kind of like a roti between like Montembeault, and then we'll see what happens with him, and then Jacob Fowler or any other goalie that's kind of brought in. The Canadiens simply just need 900 save percentage, and they're a playoff team in my opinion, as they continue to add to this roster. So to me, you look at their best elements. What happens if Budzuk and Demidov start taking off? And I say start taking off with Demidov, despite him having 26 points. But I mean, like really taking off. Like there is so much opportunity for the Canadiens to get even better here that I look at other teams, like say, for example, like the Detroit Red Wings. That's a prime team that's one major injury away from just caving.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
Right? Where like other teams in the NHL, like there are some teams that have gone through injuries, like the Florida Panthers, the Toronto Maple Leafs, and they've suffered accordingly. The Canadiens as well. And the Canadiens, in spite of bad goaltending, right? The Leafs, it's not like they got bad goaltending. Hildeby was fantastic against the Canadiens, right? Great performances. So it's not like they're getting suboptimal performances from the replacement players. The Canadiens, it's the other way around. It's the goaltending. It's the non-injured players that haven't been able to maintain consistency. So it'll be great. And I think the Canadiens, when they get Kirby Dach and they get Caden Gooley back, will be another level. And I think
agreed
with Caden Gooley back, I think the Canadiens, with the way that the Atlantic is shaping up right now, the Canadiens are a top 3 team in the Atlantic.
Let's go, baby.
I just want to add one more thing.
Yeah, add one more thing, Marco D'Amico.
Yes. Yes. Well, actually, I have a statement to make at the end of the show, but
okay, the end of the show is here. So add your.
We're gonna get. Okay, so Elliot Friedman writes in his written 32 thoughts that was just released. 2 late night pre-freeze deals in the aftermath of the Phil Danault situation. Ideally, they probably wanted a roster player, and then Friedman goes to write Danault's rough start, no goals, 5 points, and contract, limited potential return. Holland expertly deflected queries about needing to do this now, but the relationship between Danault and the Kings was fractured beyond repair.
Oh, okay. Well.
So that brings me into my next point. I don't dunk on people, but I do show appreciation.
Oh boy.
And I want to just simply I just want to simply thank Canadiens fans and NHL fans that aren't necessarily Habs fans that were involved, that saw what happened this week and that went to bat for me. It meant a lot. My goal is to earn your respect, and that was wow. And I just really want to tip my hat to you guys, because
there it is.
There is a full game that gets played in the media, and I'm glad that you guys trusted me enough to say, we get what you're saying, but we also believe what Marco's saying. And that to me, that meant a lot. So I just wanted to take my time to thank you for that and your support and the subscription to the podcast. You guys have been fantastic, and I will continue, and Sean and I especially will continue to bring you excellent content moving forward. So thank you for that.
That's a high bar. Excellent content is a very, very high bar. Never strive for mediocrity. Mediocrity is death. I think that's very well said, well put. Humble, high road approach, when perhaps the easier thing to do was to Blake Griffin power slam, but I get where you're coming from. Well done, young man, and continue the great work. And thank you so much for being a part of this, everybody. And just to remind you that we're going to be live from Maison Publique McLean's coming up next Tuesday for a watch party and what looks to be Phil Danault's return to the Bleu Blanc Rouge Tuesday night. So come on down to Maison Publique McLean's. Let's celebrate the holidays.
Sean, the only thing that's sad is that we can't have the butter chicken pizza.
I know. It's so good.
I'm gonna ask Stu.
Their French fries.
Have them bring it.
I love their fries. These are like real potatoes, not the frozen stuff. You know what I mean? Great service and everything else. And big thanks, of course, to everybody for watching us today. Don't forget, if you're looking for last-minute Christmas gifts, littlebearonline.com, everything you need for your pet. Cheapest T-shirts.ca, proud sponsor of the show. Order today, delivered tomorrow. It's a Montreal company based in downtown Montreal. You need toques, you need hats, you need trucker caps, you need hoodies. They've got so much different.
They make really good stuff.
See, there you go. That's all done through cheapesttshirts.ca. Order today and get it tomorrow. They're that quick, and proud sponsor of the show. And of course, our friends at cabletel.com, the best in home security, very easy installation, no drilling, no mess, none of that stuff. Where you got 4 or 5 people coming in your house, and the best technology in the business from cabletel.com. And of course, Catherine Prince at Remax Platine, Catherine with a K, catherineprince.ca. Marco, thank you so much. We'll be back live tomorrow at 10 a.m. for a full recap of Jacob Fowler beating the Pittsburgh Penguins for the second time in his career, happening tonight live from the Bell Center. Marco, thank you, sir, and great job.
Thank you all, and have yourselves a great weekend.